call to order the regular meeting of the City Council of the City of Victorville and the City Council sitting as the Library Board of Trustees, Southern California Logistics Rail Authority, Southern California Logistics Airport Authority, Victorville Redevelopment Agency, and the Victorville Water District. And the first order of business is going to closed session. I do have a card for closed session.
First thing actually we should do is go into public comment.
Public comment, okay. We do have public comment, and I do have a card from Norm Miller. Norm?
Sit up close here, make it easier on me than you guys. I just wanted to say I hope that the closed sessions, I've heard there's been some problems with the way the closed sessions have been handled, and I'm just hoping that these things will be ironed out and straightened out and everything will be done. And one other item is for the regular meeting, there's some financial requests on there for spending money, and seeing that you're not going to have a full council, I would like to recommend that those be continued until the next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other person for close correction for public comment? Hearing none. I'll entertain a motion to go into closed session, and what do you?
Mayor Cabrialis, we have closed session on agenda items 2, 3, and 4. It should be noted on item number 2A. We do not need to go in closed session on item 2A. However, we do need to go into closed session on item 2B pursuant to Government Code 54956.9B1. The facts and circumstances regarding the threatened litigation are that we had a contract with General Electric. We have been, by General Electric, deemed in breach of that contract, and we believe there is a strong likelihood that as a result of that breach of the contract, they will initiate litigation. I need to brief you on some strategies with respect thereto. The other two items, item 3 is existing litigation pursuant to Government Code 54956.9A, California Building Systems versus KND and Walna, case number SCVSS144253. And item 4 is existing litigation pursuant to Government Code 54956.9A, CMB Export LLC versus City of Victorville, case number CIVVS 901467. To the extent there is any action taken with respect, any final action with respect to any of these items, we will come out and report that action at the conclusion of the closed sessions.
Or it lists the individuals regarding the litigation, but on a threat of litigation, you do not list who's threatening you?
It's General Electric is the party, as I mentioned, in the facts and circumstances. It was a breach of contract between the City of Victorville and General Electric.
Okay.
That person that caused that fine is moved in their seat thinking I wouldn't notice where they were now. Moved around in the room a bit. So. You've stayed in your seat. You weren't the last person that caused me that $5 fine. Could be both.
I'd like to reconvene the regular meeting of the City Council of the City of Victorville and the City Council sitting as the Library Board of Trustees, Southern California Logistics Rail Authority, Southern California Logistics Airport Authority, Victorville Redevelopment Agency, and the Victorville Water District. And we'll have the invocation, and that'll be by Pastor Ray Jem from the Jubilee Community Church. That'll be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, and that'll be led by Victorville Police Chief Reynolds.
Heavenly Father, your word tells us that we are to trust in you with all our heart and not to lean on our own understanding. And in all our ways, if we acknowledge you, you will direct us. And Lord, that's what we pray for today. You know the challenging times that we're facing as a city. And I thank you, Lord, for these council members who step up to meet those challenges. And we pray for them tonight that you will give them wisdom and that your will be accomplished in this meeting. In Jesus' name, amen.
We will now have a special presentation. I would like to call upon Jeremy Salazar, who recently returned from Iraq. He's with the United States Army, and we do have a banner for Jeremy. If you drive around town on the main street, you will see our banners flying from the some of our light standards. And the banners are there to recognize the service of our service men and women who are in Iraq or Afghanistan who are serving our country. So it's always good to have them come back safely. And Jeremy, would you come forward and accept your banner? These banners are returned. These banners are returned to the service person, men and women, who are serving and come back to us. And they all are residents of the city of Victorville. I think we now have 75 banners. So there's quite a few men and women from the city of Victorville who are serving overseas in Iraq or Afghanistan. So, Jeremy, I would like to present you with your banner, and I hope you don't get redeployed like many of the other soldiers are, so you can keep this for a long, long time, and we don't have to hang it back up. But that's it's not a good sign for us when we have to put these up there, because that means that somebody is in harm's way. We would like all of them to come back to us safely. So, Jeremy, again, here's your banner, and I will give you an opportunity to say a few words to the audience.
All right. My name's Jeremy Salazar. Just to tell you guys about myself, I really don't have a speech written down. As I told Mrs. Peterson, I should have brought my resume. I'm out of active duty now. I'm now in the reserves, but I spent a year in Afghanistan and 15 months in Iraq was my latest one. And I just really appreciate the support from the city. It was pretty cool coming home and seeing my name in front of the courthouse. And and they sent me a box, which is pretty nice too, with a bunch of goodies in there that are pretty rare to get when you're down there. But it's just a real thoughtful thing. I really appreciate everything you've done, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Jeremy, and thank you for your service to our country. Thank you very much. Yes.
We held a closed session at 5 o'clock, and there is no reportable action with respect to the 3 agendized closed session items.
Thank you. We'll now go into public comment. We have quite a few cards for public comment, and again, on some of the, on item number 8 and the CDBG item number 5, as well as just regular public comment. So you do have three minutes, and we would like to maintain the quorum in the hall here, and that means no clapping or cheering or anything nature of that. So with having said that, I will start with the public hearing, the general public hearing, and the first one is Thomas Gormley.
Good evening. I come before you about the sales tax situation that the city seems to be short on. It was in the paper yesterday, but let's leave it yesterday. Let's go on from new. I would like to make a suggestion that the council comes out and looks what's going on in the small business sector. Business Week states 70% of all income comes from small businesses. The city of Victorville is not business friendly. They have cost hundreds of thousands of dollars in sales tax revenue because they wouldn't let people into a business. The last time I was here, I was in front of this very council. I had a man who wanted to rent my property that had been a used car lot for 27 years. He wanted to put statuary in there. He paid $29,000 in sales tax. I had the canceled check and I showed it to you folks. With your other end of this building not paying attention, he is now in Arizona. This has gone on. I could go on forever, but let's go on tomorrow and get some of these small businesses back that built Victorville. And never mind these big box buildings. These small businesses, it's a proven fact that their tax revenue is steady. Let's give them a break. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Norm Miller.
Mayor, council members, my name is Norm Miller, and I just want to reiterate that what I had spoke about earlier tonight is that I would like you to continue some of the financial items that are on there for a full council review, because I think that needs to be done. When we're spending money, it shouldn't be controlled by 3 people. It should be all 5 people. Thank you.
Dorothy Miller.
Mayor and councilmen, I would like to make a couple 3 statements. Number 1, why don't we cut you council members' stipends? We'll get some money in the coffer. Cut the city manager and his assistant. We'll get some money in the coffer. I'd like to see how many of you guys will be sitting up there if you gave that up. I bet none of you. Then I have one more thing. Cut staff. The staff has been cut a little bit. We can cut the higher staff a little bit more and get more money in the coffer, because we need money for this city, not for anything else. The city needs money to survive. The city is not surviving real well. Give the airport back to Vita. Let Vita run it and see if we don't have more money. And that is one of the major things here. And I do want to thank Public Works. We had a monstrosity hole on Sycamore, and they come out and they filled it in. And it is sure nice to drive across there without... Thank you.
Ms. Miller, normally we don't respond, but I will respond to your first remark, and that is that, we're serving here because of the small stipend that we get. That is not correct, at least in my part. I'm retired. I could be doing a lot of other things, but I choose to be here because I'm a public servant, and I've been a public servant for over 40 years. I just want you to know that. Thank you. Lee Tabor?
Mr. Mayor, council members, I'm concerned about, I contacted you all in December with regard, I wanted to speak to you with regard to Inland Energy. I wanted to let you know, to ask you to have no more dealings with these people anymore, to have no more contracts going forward and no more money paid out to them. I was prevented from doing so by Mr. Bortowski. Do I have your name correct, sir?
Bortowski.
Excuse me. I was prevented from doing so because he said that I was violating the Brown Act. Now I see here in the paper, I read that an activist is filing a suit against y'all for violating the Brown Act for your closed-door sessions. And I would like you to take and have government in public so that we can find out what it is that y'all are up to. Because y'all aren't spending your money, Mayor Capriales, you're spending my money. And I have the right to know. And you're doing these things in closed doors outside of the law as far as I can tell. Furthermore, with regard to Inland Energy, you know, that it appears that you're going to be paying them more money, but you're refusing to pay CMB Export, which did have a valid contract, as I understand it, with the city, and was denied because so that Inland Energy could take and begin to bring the visa. They were in the paper. They reported they would bring $100 million into the city from the visa program. Thus far, they brought in $500,000. Do I have that correct? And that was 20 months ago. They've had 20 months to bring in $100 million. They brought in $500,000. And you canceled the contract with CMB, and the suit against the city is for $33 million, as I understand it. So the net loss to the city has been $33.5 million. So y'all may be getting a stipend, and that's good and that kind of thing, but you're spending our money. And I want you to put a stop to it and stop sending money out to Inland Energy. And I'm asking you to do so in public so I don't get another letter from Mr. Bortowski. And as I understand it, what I've been told now by one of the council members is that it wasn't against the law, that I do have a right to contact the council members, all of them, about the same issue, and that is not a violation of the Brown Act. Was that communicated to you, sir? You're not allowed to comment, are you? Although you just did comment to this lady just a minute ago. Thank you.
Thank you. Wally Lynn?
Gentlemen, having served on another city council, I know it's also pleasant to hear something positive once in a while, so here it goes, something very positive about our community. This is Jack McMahon that has been with the Victorville Kiwanis Club for many, many years, and we're here to tell you to invite your support and encouragement for the first annual High Desert Kiwanis God and Country Celebration Breakfast. This is a big, big event. You've all heard of the National Day of Prayer. This is kind of a prelude to that. National Day of Prayer is the first Thursday of May each year. This event, we're moving it up because we have 500 high school students that will be attending and participating in this event. And they could not get out of school during that week in May. So it's April the 15th, where you not only pay, but you pray. So this is a very exciting event. You're all aware of Azusa Pacific University opening their campus here, I think next week, as a matter of fact. We'll be attending that open house. They're participating. We have 100 of them coming to provide the entertainment. This is all about rah-rah America, red, white, and blue. All the military will be there, Army, Air Force, Navy, Marine Corps. Marine Corps will be presenting colors, and we have an American hero as our speaker, Bob Whelan, who lost both legs in Vietnam. He's a soldier. And each military will be marching down center aisle with the orchestra playing their marching tune. It's going to be a very, very patriotic event. Why we're doing this is to encourage our young people to be more patriotic and mindful of their patriotic responsibilities, and to hopefully encourage them to develop their spiritual values in their lives. It's a win-win program. All of the cities are being asked to support, and this is my third one. I'm hoping that you will join in the other cities to support this, as well as the Chambers of Commerce and the service clubs. I happen to be a Rotarian, but down the hill before moving up here 6 years ago, I was in Kiwanis, and I chaired 15 of these events, the last 10 of which we had 1,000 people. We will have 1,000 people at the fairgrounds on April the 15th. We're asking businesses to support the kids. The tables are $250 each for the young people. And right now we have 25 commitments. We need another 25, and we'll get those. But this is a marvelous event.
Got 30 seconds.
And with the student participation and all of your support, this will be the biggest event of its kind in the history of the High Desert, I'm very happy to say. So we're very excited about it. And before the churches even get involved in it, it looks like we have a very near sellout crowd for the DCB building that holds 1,000 people. So I hope you all come and support this event in the best way you can. Jack, did you have anything to further?
Nope, I think the timing is really good, and I support it 100%, and I hope you all do too.
Well, you said that, is that the 250 sponsor you're looking for 25 more?
Yes, you can participate. By a lot of churches will be buying tables themselves for their use, but the school tables are 250. That's 10 kids, and we're also looking for sponsorship for the military. We'll have 3 or 4 tables of them. So we need sponsorship for the kids and the military. Getting adults there is not a problem. We probably already have our capacity, but if we can overflow into another building, all I can say is amen. And by the way, I look up here and I say, in God we trust. I compliment you for having that up there, and I'm hoping that my town of Apple Valley will soon get something up there just like it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Jack. Next, we have Raul Marwa.
Mr. Mayor, Council, I represent Denny's Restaurant located on Valley Center Drive near Palmdale Road. We're here today to ask the city to step in to help us with the problem that's being caused by the nightclub Karma that's located on Cottonwood Road, just north of Bear Valley Road. It's an 18 and over nightclub. Because of the issues coming from the bar rush that come from that nightclub into our restaurant when the bar closes at 2 a.m., in the last 8 months, we've had local authorities respond to distress calls at the restaurant because of violence 50 different times. We've had to have drunken underage girls that were engaged in a brawl be broken up by sheriffs using a taser weapon. There's been shootings in our parking lot. At this point, we're asking the city to step in and help us out. We've been forced to shut down the restaurant to protect the safety of our patrons and employees. We've been closing from the hours of 2 a.m. to 3 a.m. for the last 3 weeks on Friday and Saturday night. For every hour that we're closed, we lose $300 to $400 in revenue. At this point, we're at a loss for what to do, and we're asking the city to step in. In preparing for the meeting today, I did a little research on the nightclub and just wanted to share some of the comments from the patrons that have been there and been disgusted by what they've seen there, including the underage drinking and the violent patrons at the nightclub. One of the reviews says, "This club sucks. They allow just about anyone inside the club. It seems they don't have a strict dress code. For those that have girlfriends, this is not the place to take her. I repeat, this place is a joke. Gangbangers will try to ask your girl to dance as soon as you step away to buy her a drink." Another reviewer said, "This place is a joke." Actually, it says, "This place is a haven for all of the thugged out transplants that have moved here from Compton and brought their baby mamas, guns, dope, useless children, and other BS with them. Shootings and stabbings occur in the parking lot quite frequently." This is the same kind of violence that we're seeing transfer over to our restaurant at the time that the bar closes. And we, on repeated occasions, see underage intoxicated people coming into our restaurant and causing problems, causing violence. I've had I've had 2 different managers attacked violently. Obviously, this causes all kinds of problems for us as a business, and we're just here today to ask you all to help us out some way, some fashion.
We have our police chief, Cliff Reynolds here. He'll get together with you.
Okay.
Yeah, but there is a question from Mike here.
I got a question. Do you have cameras in your, around your facility and on your parking lot area?
We have
Operating
cameras.
well?
We have cameras throughout the dining rooms and covering the parking lot as well. We've forwarded surveillance footage to the local sheriffs and authorities several occasions for several different reasons. I actually have a list here. This is my father that I brought with me in case you needed any other further testimony. We've been there for 15 years, and we've seen this problem happen before with another nightclub some years back, and fortunately the city was able to step in and shut the place down and help us out at that time. I have a call summary that was forwarded to us from the local sheriffs that documents the amount of time that they're spending at our establishment. I'm sure it's a waste of taxpayer money to have sheriffs and local authorities continue to come repeatedly for the same issues. And again, the city's losing revenue because of the loss of sales tax, because of the loss of
I
revenue.
understand. We've been here before, and as you well know, and stepped in on another place. But how do you know it's karma, though? It might be a rhetorical question, but how do you know that's where they're coming from particularly as opposed to some other nightclub?
Well, the patrons there, obviously, I also brought a night manager and general manager from the restaurant. They've been there. They've been the ones that have been attacked. They know where they're coming from because they hear people talking. Also, I don't know, maybe somebody else can jump in here.
A similar situation had happened a few
Up
years
to the
back.
microphone, please.
We had a similar situation years back. I think it goes back, but 7, 8 years. There was a nightclub on 7th Street, and used to have the same problem. And there was no control of ID check or not serving the already intoxicated patrons. With the result, they became unruly and would flow over to the restaurants. And since we are 24, our place, they used to come over there. Well, as we approached the city council in that time, there was some sting operations done by the local police as well as the state department of ABC and so forth in coordination with the city. And eventually there was so much material.
Sir, I didn't mean to get this expanding. You're going to be talking to the police cabinet in a few minutes here, but we're aware of the problem from the previous place. You've now brought it to our attention again, and we've got some ideas on what we might be doing. So I'll leave that there. The history, I think, is clear. All three of us have been there throughout all that.
One other way that we can tell that it's coming from Karma is because Karma is the only 18 and over nightclub that's open during those hours at that time. And because there's so many underage intoxicated people coming into the restaurant, the natural inference is made that they're coming from Karma and not from the other bar.
Well, thank you. And do you have the police chief back there waiting for you to confer with you? And we'll work to resolve your problem.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. That's all the cards I have for public comment. We'll now start the regular agendas, and we have the Library Board of Trustees. You had it for a special item? Yes, I did. Okay. What item was that?
Yeah. When we get to that item, that's when
We'll get to you. When we get to that item, you'll be called.
Oh, you'll be doing that one? Okay.
Library Board of Trustees, do we have any revisions? I don't see none. Consent calendar?
Second.
Next, we have the Southern California Logistics Rail Authority and also the Southern California Logistics Airport Authority. And Councilman Caldwell is the chair of those authorities, and he'll do those agendas.
Thank you, Mayor Cabrialis. On the Rail Authority agenda, item 3 is the consent calendar for approval.
Second.
And item number 4 is a request to receive and file the Logistics Rail Authority basic financial statements dated June 30th, 2009. Mayor Cabrialis, we have a similar agenda item on the Airport Authority, item 4 on the VWB number 4 and the City Council number 10. Is it the desire of the council to take them all together at one time, or do you want to?
I think it would be best to do it that way.
Do you want to do it as a part of the authority, or do you want to do it as part of the council?
Part of the authority and along with the other, with the council and the district.
With that in mind, then, I'm going to deal with the presentation of the audit for the Rail Authority, for the Airport Authority, for the City Council, and the Water Board. We'll do them all collectively. We'll have the auditors present the audit. At the conclusion of the auditor's presentation to council, we'll go forward with questions and comments, and once we have the information, we will then call on the people who've indicated an interest and a desire to speak on this subject. So just so everybody knows, we're taking the audit as a package for all of the city. Sir.
Great. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, my name is Stephen Dobrynin. I'm the Senior Audit Manager for the City Audit for the year ended June 30th, 2009. I want to give a summary of the reports of the result of the audits. The scope of the audit includes the city's basic financial statements and the required supplementary information, the Victorville Redevelopment Agency, the Water District, the Southern California Logistics Airport Authority, the Rail Authority, the single audit of all the federal grants that the city receives, as well as the agreed upon procedures on the GAN limitation. The audit opinion that we provided on the basic financial statements is an unqualified opinion. That's the highest audit opinion that could be received, and that says that the financial statements are fairly stated. We have included an explanatory paragraph that emphasizes substantial doubt about the city's ability to continue as a going concern. In that same opinion, we've made a reference to the absence of management's discussion and analysis, which is a required part, required supplementary information. And the last item that we've referenced in that opinion is that there was a change in the accounting for post-employment benefits. Wanted to discuss some areas of internal control deficiencies. There's material weaknesses, and then there's going to be some lesser items which are called significant deficiencies. The 3 material weaknesses that we noted were the need for improved communication over changes in capital assets, need for improvement in adjustments detected by the audit process, and then a need for formal documentation and approval of long-term interfund borrowings. There's 4 additional significant deficiencies that we noted, and these are in a letter that they're in the single audit and also in a separate letter that we've provided to you in more detail. But it's a need for improved documentation of compliance with debt covenants. There's a need for enhanced finance department involvement in the financial statement preparation. There's a need for improved controls over monitoring of the grants and grant reimbursements, and then enhanced security control in the information technology systems. As part of the single audit, there's some other items that we need to report to you on, and happy to report that with respect to major federal programs, there were no material weaknesses in the internal control over those major federal programs. There were no non-compliance items which were material to the financial statements of the city. We issued an unqualified opinion for compliance with major federal programs. And those major federal programs, there were 4 of them from 2 different federal agencies. And first was from the Environmental Protection Agency. There was the congressional mandated projects, and then the second one was surveys, studies, investigations, and special purpose grants. And then from the Department of Transportation, there was a Federal Aviation Administration grant, as well as a Highway Planning and Construction grant. And then there's some other items that we need to communicate to you, and just kind of as a summary, there was accounting estimates and judgments that we looked at, and there was eight of those areas that we identified. During the audit, there was one area of difficulty that was encountered in either performing or completing the audit. There were significant audit adjustments that were detected through the audit process, and there was 6 categories of those. Happy to report that we had no disagreements with management on the results of the audit, and we're very pleased to report that we did receive wonderful cooperation from the management and the finance staff. Just to make you aware that management of the city has provided to us certain representations related to the financial statements and then the representations that were made during the audit. And they've dated that January 29, 2010, which is the same date of our auditor's report. And then there are no consultations by the city management with other CPA firms on accounting issues. I want to talk a little bit about the financial condition of the city, and these are items that are in the notes to the financial statement. I'm just extracting a summary of those. In 2009, the general fund of the city sustained a $1.8 million loss, and this was after a transfer of $15 million from the sanitary fund. For December 31st, 2009, there's a projected general fund deficit of $3.75 million. And then, as you're aware, the city is currently experiencing liquidity cash deficiencies and may have a need to borrow from other funds. For the Southern California Logistics Airport Authority, at June 30, 2009, there was a net asset deficit of $52.5 million, and that includes a current year loss of $161.5 thousand. The estimated net loss for the 6 months ended December 31st was $346,000. For the Victorville Municipal Utilities Enterprise Fund, they incurred a $10.5 million loss during the year ended June 30th, 2009. Their deficiency at the end of the year was $75.6 million. There's an unaudited net loss for the 6 months ended December 31st of $1.8 million. Other items to be aware of is that the General Electric purchase contract is providing uncertainty over the city's continuing obligations, and want to make you aware that the city has a deposit with General Electric of over $50 million, and then there's a potential termination charge of additional $56 million. What's next for the city? I want to encourage you to continue making major cutbacks in spending citywide. Consider any revenue enhancements wherever possible. Maintain your liquidity in your unrestricted funds. Promptly bill and collect when you've got capital projects that are funded on a reimbursement basis, be very timely with those. Monitor your unrestricted cash on a monthly basis, and then avoid borrowing from restricted funds. And then work on correcting the material weaknesses in internal controls, as well as other significant deficiencies that were noted. At this time, I wanted to ask of you if there's any questions on the 2009 audit or anything else about the audit process.
Questions or comments from members of the council?
I haven't read the management analysis yet, but did you find any major discrepancies in the style of management? The other auditing firms seem to have questions about our judgment in terms of managing style, not the numbers themselves. I understand that, but any qualified statements about the way we're managing? Or is it pretty traditional
No, I think we've taken, as we worked with the city's management, the finance staff, that they are, we believe that they've taken, responsibility in, looking to see the financial condition of the city, and that they are monitoring it. Is that okay?
In the overall audit process, and I'm asking this for all of the departments that I've opened this discussion on, did you find any violations of the government code or the public contracts code?
We did not.
Find any violations of any other statutes or regulatory constraints in terms of municipalities?
There's one very immaterial instance of noncompliance in the redevelopment agency, and it's relating to money that was loaned from the Low and Moderate Income Housing Fund to the capital projects funds to pay for the ERAF, the Educational Revenue Augmentation Fund. And that is over 10 years, that was loaned over 10 years ago, and it was required to be repaid in a period of 5 years. And that is something that has been reported on in the past.
Find any instance where there would be a suspicion of embezzlement or theft or misappropriation of public funds?
We did not.
Would it be safe to say that as you and your staff members have worked through this audit process, that everyone that you've dealt with has been given an opportunity to share with you whatever their concerns or their involvement in the city's financial operations?
Yes, they have.
Any indication that anybody was withholding any information?
None that I'm aware of.
I have one question.
Certainly.
On the deficit in the general fund, we know we're going through a recession and there's revenues that are not coming in like you would like them to. But isn't part of the deficit in the other, like in the airport of the municipal utility department, wasn't that part of the general fund money that went to support those operations, and so we now find ourselves in a deficit, or is it just a recession in general that caused that?
No, I think that there were the general fund, when other funds of the city, are short in their revenue, the general fund, needs to, be the one that's typically transferring money to those. And so I think that's something to where with the operations of the airport and things like that, when they ran into a deficit, that the city did and has, made transfers.
That was a normal operation?
Are you asking, do most cities support their airport authorities?
Not all cities have an airport.
That's true.
They have other projects.
Right. It is, that's something to where there are other cities when they've got other items such as golf courses or things like that, that when there's shortfalls, that they do support them.
I have one last question.
Certainly.
In the your company performs audits all over. You have a very, very good list of clients. I'm sure in the process of going through this, see the uniqueness of cities in terms of their revenue structure. Victorville happens to be a high sales tax generating city and very dependent on that. And in comparison to most cities, we are kind of a low property tax city. Do you see anything unique about the city's decline in sales tax revenue and its decline in property tax revenues as a result of the recession that has lowered property values throughout the nation? Do you see anything that sets us apart from the overall financial decline that municipalities are experiencing, or do you see anything that is particularly unique about our situation?
With respect to sales tax, anytime you've got that dependency on that, is there anything unique to where you have a high concentration of a particular type of industry? Not necessarily. You have a wide variety. I think the auto dealerships, was quite significant to you, and there's other cities which had those as well, and that will significant, when the market went south on that, I think that definitely affected those cities, who had those larger operations in that.
What about the decline in property tax revenues as a result of declining assessed values by the taxing authorities?
With that, as you kind of indicated that, you're not heavily dependent on property tax, but the property taxes, if someone, if you have low turnover of residents, you've had people who have been here for long times, you're going to take, and you've been steadily dependent just upon those. I don't think that you've, in Victorville, have had a high turnover to where those assessed values have, jumped dramatically.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Yes.
But with respect to the SCLA, that would be a significant impact, the difference there in terms of, I don't know, but I think our assessed valuation for the whole redevelopment, 8 Mile redevelopment agency went down hundreds of millions of dollars in assessed valuation at least. Gets us back down to a base level. That's where a significantly large number shows up in the redevelopment agency with respect to property, even though it doesn't directly come into their general fund.
Right, and that will be, with those assessed values, as the airport, as they work to increase, the lease revenues that they have, if they, without those companies here, you're correct that the assessed valuation is going to be suppressed until that activity increases.
Cox, do you or any members of your staff any questions or comments?
We've worked very closely with the auditor, and there's probably going to be some indication or questions as to why some of these weren't corrected since they showed up in the last year's audit. And remember, last year's audit was significantly late, and we were already into this year, which meant last year was closed out. This is the audit that closed out last year. So the items that were brought to our attention, we are in the process of correcting every one that we possibly can, and there was no opportunity to correct them by June 30 of last year, which had already closed out. There are some items that indicates through December, because the auditor is aware of those and must bring to your attention. But we have met with finance and other department heads, including Doug's effort, and the items that have been brought to our attention have all been discussed with the auditors, and it is our intent that all of those will be corrected by June 30, and so your next audit will be beginning June 30 of this year, and all of those corrections should be made.
Well, I guess that's it for you. Thank you, and thanks to your firm. You've done a very professional job, and we're very, very happy with your involvement in our city, and we look forward to the next audit.
Great, thank you. It's a pleasure to serve as your independent auditor.
Thank you. I have one card indicating a wish to testify on the audit, and that's Kay Schultz. Ms. Schultz.
I'm commenting on the Daily Press article on 212, and the auditor just made the same comment in his presentation, that there is a substantial doubt about the city's ability to continue as a going concern, and also Mr. Cox's statement that Victorville won't survive the 2010 to 2011 fiscal year unless it trims millions from its budget. And first of all, I'm just wondering, how many millions have to be trimmed from the budget?
I don't know. I think the deficit right now, Doug, is about $3.5 million that we have to.
Correct, Mr. Cox. The deficit for this fiscal year is just over $4 million, with an estimate for next fiscal year deficit of about $3.5 million.
Does the city believe that cutting, I mean, I don't know how much was saved in the last layoff and when you did the cuts there, but does the city believe that between those cuts and layoffs that are coming up in the future, that that's going to be enough to fill in that gap?
We believe that by watching income and expenditures on a monthly basis and making the cuts, we have no choice but making sure that we get to a point that we can operate on the income that we receive. I indicated to the council, I believe last meeting, if we did nothing, we can get through June 30 of this year. We can pay all bills, we can pay our outstanding bonds, principal and interest, and we can pay payroll. But we could not possibly get through next year, which means we can't wait until next year to start making the cuts. And we are making cuts continually, and we're continuing to make cuts. One of the things that indicated to the council in, I believe it was October, that as far as we could determine, even though we're making dramatic cuts almost everywhere, there would still be another layoff. Council asked us to not do that before the holidays. That felt that it was almost a disservice to the employees to do that and get through the holidays before we address that again. We did. We are continuing to make cuts, but we are going to have the layoffs, and we're working on that plan now. But we don't intend to just lay off people to balance the budget. I indicated to the council that we're canceling programs, and we're looking at contracting out.
That was my next question.
And we have several areas that we're looking at contracting as we talk, and we're actually out for RFPs for the golf course. We have individuals who have indicated that they would like to contract for other city services. We're going to look at each and every one of those to see, in fact, if there is a savings. We have private businesses indicating that, given the opportunity to provide some of the services they can do cheaper, we're going to give them that opportunity to submit proposals in every place that we can save money without dramatically reducing services. We're going to do so, and in some instances, we'll probably be reducing services. We'll reduce the services first where people, hopefully people won't notice. And the council immediately took a public position at that point that health and welfare services will not be cut, fire, police, and code enforcement. But the places that we'll cut back, as examples, I don't need to, the list is very long, and we look at all of those. If we're sweeping streets every 10, 12 days, it'll be every 15, 16 days. If we're trimming trees in the parks every year, we'll trim trees every other year. If we're mowing grass twice a week in the park, we'll mow it once a week. We're going to be looking at every single thing that we can look at, including contracting out. And if we are able to balance this budget at that point, then we'll try to maintain the services. If we still haven't made it where the expenditures do not exceed the income, then we'll look at other areas to cut. We do not have a choice. By June 30 of next year, we have no choice but to have this balanced. That's what we will do.
Well, both the newspaper report really sounded like the city was in really dire straits, and I know there's been a lot of questions that people have been, they've been tippy-toeing around the possibility that the city is going to have to file for bankruptcy. And if that happens, how would that affect the employees' PERS, their medical benefits? How would that affect retirees' pensions, if in fact that were to happen? And it has happened before, so it is a possibility. And would another government agency come in and take over if that should happen?
Two things. I'm assuming, counsel, it's okay to answer. We don't normally engage in debate, but this is a very important subject, and I know a lot of people are looking at this issue, and I'd like to answer this if I could. Initially, one city, Lafayette, declared bankruptcy. Many cities were looking at the possibility of declaring bankruptcy. And what they found out, they can delay debt. They can't wipe out the debt. Much different than a private individual declaring bankruptcy. When a city declares bankruptcy, there is an absolute requirement that the court takes over the bankruptcy case. The judge essentially is in charge. He determines who's going to be running the city, and while a payment is delayed, the payments must continue, and there is a plan that must be submitted to the courts. Where a private individual can actually declare bankruptcy and erase debt, the city cannot erase debt. And they cannot do so because there's been a covenant or agreement made with bondholders when we borrowed money that we'll pay it back, and the court ensures that all those will be paid back. General contracts for operations can be canceled, but beyond that, the only thing it does is delay several things. But one of the adverse things that happens when a city declares bankruptcy is the judge has the authority to say, show me all of your assets and show me all of your liabilities, and turn them to a third party and say, sell all the assets. Once they sell the assets, he can then say, you don't have any need to declare bankruptcy.
But what if they can't sell the assets?
Well, it's up to the court. They will sell them. They can sell them any way they want to. They're totally in charge. You lose all local control. When the economy turns around and then you want to start progressing again, you can't, because you've sold your land, you've sold your equipment, you've sold what they consider an asset. It's not saying they will do it. They exercise a lot of judgment, but they can. And so most of the cities now have decided that they have to work it out themselves, that the worst thing that can happen, that literally, is to declare bankruptcy. While, yes, you can cancel some contracts, the adverse effect is that businesses are very, very reluctant to come to the community because of the publicity that they declared bankruptcy. And so for years to come, you do not get development. And if you have an area large enough, as the Victor Valley is, to have businesses because of the commercial industrial area, from the day you declare bankruptcy for probably 8 to 10 years, all those businesses will go in surrounding communities or outside the city. So the cost of the bankruptcy is far more than anyone can measure. And so for those individuals who may have suggested, the staff feels that that is the worst possible thing that could possibly happen. And I think that the very fact that the city of Los Angeles is going to be laying off 1,000 employees, and some of the council members have been talking about they may declare bankruptcy, which would have worldwide effect. I think most of the cities in California are watching to see how does Los Angeles handle this and what they're going to do. A lot of cities, if you're in the city, there's a discussion. It's not too much publicized as it is in L.A. We are not the only city where people have suggested there may be a need to look at the bankruptcy issues, but it's probably the most serious thing that this city would ever do, even to approach it because of the ramifications. So back to can we, one other thing too, the staff, the finance staff particularly, looked at the sales tax. There's been a dramatic drop in sales tax, and yet they projected about on line where it was going to be. Property taxes, we feel that while it's had a dramatic decline, the biggest decline is going to come this year, this coming year. If it doesn't, we're going to be far ahead financially where we thought we were going to be. The other programs that the city was expending money on when the economy was good, as the mayor announced during the State of the City message, have been put on a shelf, and the expenditures have literally stopped on all of those items. So we're concentrating just on the health, safety, welfare, and municipal programs. And a lot of the other programs that will come with redevelopment or development at the base are really put on the shelf right now. At the same time, while there is a huge debt at the airport, SCLA, I'm sure everyone has been reading that Plastipac and Dr. Pepper are opening up. They will create about 400 jobs, and the amount that will go on the tax rolls in the very near future is millions of dollars. All of this helps. All of this helps. And so we absolutely believe that this will turn around. It's been very, very difficult for everyone, but we do believe that it's going to turn around, and we continue work, and we're continuing to work with businesses who want to develop. And unfortunately, one of the scariest things is to be working with a business that wants to develop at the base, who will hire employees, and that business will bring a lot of permanent jobs, and add the assessed valuation. They're very concerned because they read that we are either totally broke or going bankruptcy, and they're not sure they want to invest here. So the staff spends a lot of time with our audits and budget showing them we are going to survive this, and we believe we are. We sincerely believe we're going to come out of this. Things are going to improve. We wish it was sooner than later, but our goal was June 30th of this year. We're not going to do it by June 30th this year, but we believe by mid-year of next year we're going to be out of the woods totally, and we are paying all bills, and we're paying all principal and interest on all bonds that have been issued, and we're not in arrears on any single bill. We're in a dispute with GE, but they have $50,200,000 of our money, and we are not in arrears on any single bill. So we're far ahead of a lot of the cities that's not getting the publicity that we are for being broke.
Okay, but to go back to one of my questions, because I think there's some of us who aren't totally convinced that bankruptcy is not in the horizon. How would that affect the employees and the retirees?
Oh, I'm sorry. The contracts that we have with the Public Employees Retirement System would continue in effect, and a bankruptcy would not affect those contracts as far as we know. Those are contracts that were made, they have been in effect. There may be some changes in regard to benefits. Council always has the authority to go from 12 days vacation to 10, or 12 days sick leave to 10, or other kind of arrangements on benefits. They also have the option of changing the health plan, but contracts that are signed with PERS, they're enforceable, and in all cities who've looked into the bankruptcy found out that they cannot change that. If you have a contract with the employees, that's a union negotiated contract, that can be recontracted, and the court can actually say that based upon the finances that needs to be recontracted, or they can throw it out. But the contract for the employees' health, for the retirement systems are always going to remain intact, because it isn't the city that's paying them direct. It is a contract with the Public Employees Retirement System, and it's a Public Employees Retirement System that's paying. So the only way that would be affected if PERS State of California goes bankrupt, then absolutely it's affected. But that wouldn't be affected by the city's financial condition at all.
I appreciate your answers. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kay.
That's the only card that I have indicating a desire to speak on the issue of the audit. I would just make these comments in addition to the comments made by Mr. Cox. And that is, first off, contrary to what is reported in the media, in the blogs, the city is not broke. Are we squeezed tight financially? Absolutely. The city is not broke, and you just heard Mr. Cox explain that we are current on our obligations. Secondly, this talk about bankruptcy. Mr. Cox and his staff have not recommended bankruptcy to this city council. And even if he did, the ultimate decision is a public policy decision of the council. The council is not talking about bankruptcy. So as you read through the stuff that is available on the internet and in the media, just bear in mind that you couldn't do it without having a public hearing and a public discussion where you would get recommendations from staff that would be debated by the council, and ultimately the council would make the decision. And those kinds of discussions have not occurred staff to council or council independently. And I, as one member of this council, believe that the austerity measures that are being implemented by all of the senior staff will work, and that they will be sufficient to see us through this very, very difficult time. I don't want to minimize the tremendous pressure and the tremendous concerns that we're all dealing with, but there's more to this than has been presented, and I can assure you that we are doing everything we can to move this city forward, and we will continue to do that. That completes agenda items 4 for the Rail Authority, the Airport Authority, and the Water District, and item 10 for the City Council. As to the Rail Authority, we have an item that concludes all of our items for the Rail Authority. On the Airport Authority, we do have a consent calendar, item 3.
Move for approval.
Second.
And item 5 is a request to approve a loan agreement between the Regional Center and the Southern California Logistics Airport Authority, the EB-5 program, in the amount of $500,000. Questions or comments from members of the authority?
For approval.
Second. Item 6, request to approve a loan agreement between the Regional Center and the Southern California Logistics Airport Authority, again an EB-5 program in the amount of $500,000.
Approval.
I am not aware of any urgency or any add-on items, so with that, that would conclude the Airport Authority and the Rail Authority.
Should we vote to file the audit?
The audit, if the receive and file, should be an action with the council.
For all of them?
For all of them.
Is that a motion?
So moved.
Second.
May we vote? I'll turn it back to Mayor Cabrialis for the redevelopment agency.
The RDA, there are no revisions. Do you have a consent calendar?
Move for approval.
Second.
A request to approve a contract, that's item number 4, to L.J. Van Velkenberg of Apple Valley, and that's for the rehabilitation of property at 15115 Waller Rose Street, and designate the director to sign the related documents.
Move staff recommendation.
Second.
Item number 5, a request to approve amendment number 3 to the Dr. Pepper owner participation agreement.
Approval.
Second.
Next, we have the Victorville Water District. There are no revisions to the agenda. Item number 3, consent calendar.
Approval.
Second.
Question, Mr. Mayor and Council. The City Council took an action for the SCLA-SC Railroad for the city, and there's a Victorville Water District financial statement. Was that included in your receive and file motion? It was. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Item number 5, request to authorize the execution of the attached memorandum of understanding between the Victorville Water District and the City of Victorville with the intent to sell property to the City of Victorville for development as a park and recreation facility contingent upon the receipt of grant funding under the statewide Park Development and Community Revitalization Program.
Move approval.
I do have, before I proceed, I have Norm Miller for item number 5 on the Water District.
Mayor, is it normal to talk about an item after it's been passed, if a person has a question about it?
Sorry?
Is it normal to ask a question about an item on the agenda after it's been approved by the council?
Well, I don't know if it's normal, but that's what happens.
Well, that's what's
tonight.
happening all the time with me.
You can say your.
What difference does it make? You've already approved it.
Well, go ahead and for the record, state your
Well,
concern.
the record's over with.
No, it's not. It's still open. You want to
Is
say?
it still open?
The council would have the opportunity to reconsider the item. There was no vote for approval on those items. It was just to accept and file the reports. They didn't take any approval action on that item, so they certainly can reconsider the item.
I would like to
based
be
on
able to speak
testimony.
before you make your votes, whatever it's for. But anyway, my question is, I was looking on the agenda and I couldn't exactly tell where this property is. Is it in District 1 or District 2's water area?
1.
Okay. Question I have, this is Water District property, and you want to sell it to the City of Victorville. And I've seen cases, and maybe this isn't a good example, but I've seen where Victorville got land for City Hall, and it cost $1. why do you have to buy the land? Why can't you just transfer it for $1 or something like that?
Reggie?
The individual that purchased this was Victorville Water District. They purchased this for percolation. They received several grants. It didn't prove feasible. It's no longer using as percolation, and so the water district can hold it in their inventory as a part of their assets, or they can make it available for sale. There is no park in that particular area, and the park department and the water district has looked at this, and the actual purchase comes from another grant from the Rec and Park District, and puts the money back into the water district that's equal to what they purchased it for.
Okay, the reason I'm questioning this is my understanding, if it's correct or not, is that the purchase was going to be through the Doris Davis Trust?
Not that, no.
Well,
I heard that.
I know.
Yeah, the actual purchase may be through the Doris Davis Trust. It's going to be up to the trustees whether or not that can occur.
Okay, but I mean, if it does, or if that's the way it's going to go, it would seem to me it would be better, instead of using her money to buy the land, to use her money or her trust to pay for the facilities on the land, you know, like the equipment and things like that.
The city of Victorville has no control on the trust, and it's totally a separate entity, and John Gargan can explain that if you would like.
Okay, thank you. Way you look at it, huh? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. We'll now go into the city council agenda. We do have some revisions.
Yes, Mayor Carabrialis. On public hearing item number 6, this is an advertised public hearing. The staff is requesting that the hearing be opened and any testimony taken and then continued to the March 2nd meeting. But for clarification, there was some language that was inadvertently omitted on the agenda that needs to be brought to your attention. The item would actually be a presentation of an ordinance number 2257, which amends section 17.64.060 of the Victorville Municipal Code to allow for liens to substitute as security for tract improvements and establish a set lien agreement fee. On item number 8, there is additional information that has been presented from the Lucerne Valley Economic Development Association. On item 15, Councilmember Almond has requested that a statement be read into the record on her behalf. So at the appropriate time during that item, I will read that statement into the record. And then there is also a request from the staff to add an urgency item.
Mayor Cabrialis, the urgency item to be considered is being submitted from Mr. Keith Metzler. It is to consider revisions to the amended wastewater capacity and treatment agreement. If you recall, at the last meeting, you approved a proposed agreement between the city and Dr. Pepper with respect to that. According to my discussions with Mr. Metzler, they concluded negotiations late Thursday after the posting of the agenda, and Dr. Pepper sought or is seeking significant revisions to that agreement. Unfortunately, there is a due date of February 24th by which to provide service pursuant to the terms of the agreement. Therefore, there's an immediate need to take action on the item. We have no meetings prior to that time. So you'd need a vote pursuant to Government Code 54954.2B2 that this item arose after the posting of the agenda and that there's immediate need. In the facts as presented, the negotiation and the terms of the contract before you were not made clear until late Thursday afternoon after the posting of the agenda. We couldn't get it on the agenda on time, and we have a February 4th delivery date. No meetings before that time.
I'll move the necessary findings to add it as an urgency item.
May I get a voice vote on this item since it is not on the agenda?
Yes.
Yes. All those in favor? Second, right? Yes. All those in favor? Aye. Okay. Item number 3 is a public hearing called to hear arguments for or against the adoption of resolution number 10-012. I will now open up the public hearing on item number 3. Anyone wishing to speak for or against item number 3, will step to the podium and state your opposition or support for item number 3. Is there anyone here for item number 3, either supporting or in opposition to item number 3? Hearing none, I will now close the public hearing.
Cabrialis, you have before you the resolution of necessity, and in the body of the resolution it sets forth the findings and determinations regarding the public interest, convenience, and necessity to require the acquisition of both fee interests and temporary construction easements. These properties are part of the Nisqually-La Mesa interchange and are required for the appropriate alignments. The property owners have gone through the Caltrans hearing process, and so we would recommend your adoption of the attached resolution, taking into consideration the findings and determinations set forth therein. You have a full staff report regarding that as part of the agenda package as well.
I'll move approval of proposed resolution 10-012.
Item number 4, it's a public hearing called to hear arguments for or against, 1, the proposed amended plan, 2, approve the reprogramming of prior year's unexpended funds to new activities in FY 10-11, and 3, adopt the proposed amendment plan for submission to the Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD, following the 30-day public comment period. Is there anyone here for or against item number 4? Hearing none, I will close the public hearing. Ask for a vote.
Second.
Item number 5, public hearing called to hear arguments for or against, 1, receiving citizen and agency comments regarding the city's needs and strategies for the 2010-2011 annual action plan, and receive testimony and consider application for projects that have been submitted to the city for HCD grants for fiscal year 2010-2011. I will now call the public hearing open. Anyone wishing to speak for or against item number 5, please come to the podium. Deborah Davis.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for your time and attention this evening. I'm here on behalf of Legal Aid Society of San Bernardino, and we have submitted an application for funding under the CDBG to continue providing legal services for citizens of Victorville. We were funded for many years through the City of Victorville and were not funded during the 9-10 grant year. In spite of that, we have worked diligently to try to continue providing services. We do consultations on a broad spectrum of issues, and then we prepare paperwork allowing people to get into court to resolve their own conflicts peaceably. We had served during the last grant term 182 citizens of Victorville, and that's new unduplicated cases. For each one of these people, we might provide them 5 to 15 units of service by taking them step by step through their case, start to finish. We know that this reduces the cost to the city. We also know that, in support of the old adage that any chain is only as strong as its weakest link, that we are here to try to strengthen the citizens of Victorville. The economic recovery is one that falls on the shoulders of each and every one of us. individual households need our assistance so that they can reach for this recovery. We would like to continue providing services. During the past grant year, without your support, we have thus far only been able to serve 100. Our stats indicate that the need is expanding. We are still coming up here twice a month to extend this service, but honestly, we need your support so that we can provide this service to all who come. The Self-Help Center does function here at the courthouse for some limited hours during the week. We find that those that come to us have limitations based on education, language, comprehension skills. They simply cannot make it through the process without our assistance. We look forward to continue serving the city, and we hope that you can join us in this partnership. Can I answer any questions for you?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dennis Morris?
Mayor, council, I think I'm going to go home and pay my sewer bill tonight. My name is Dennis Morris with Moses House Ministries, and we serve women and children here in the high desert. Of the 4,139 client trips our van made in 2009, 1,811 were in Victorville, taking mothers and children to various appointments and then back home again, a door-to-door service. 43% of our ongoing case management services are for Victorville residents. In 08-09 year, we served 596 Victorville residents. Just from July to December, we served 705. Our facility is behind the old H&E on Anacapa. Through our little boutique thrift store, we distributed over 115,000 items to clients as incentives for them to keep working their plans, and to the public through our retail sales. Last year, Moses House provided opportunities for welfare recipients to qualify for their benefit checks through volunteerism. They logged in 14,100 volunteer hours at Moses House. Services have been expanded beyond belief. Our CDBG request this year is for $10,000. I understand that the great difficulty you folks have facing with the CDB funding, but we want to thank you for your support in the past, and thank you for your partnership. Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. Anita Gomez?
Good evening, Mayor, Council members. I'm Anita Gomez. I'm representing A Better Way Domestic Violence, located at 14114 Hesperia Road, Victorville. First, we'd like to thank you for all your support in the past years. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to speak to you again tonight. I'm not going to take up too much time. Some of the services that we offer at A Better Way are: we have an emergency shelter, we have transitional housing, we offer classes to the community, all of which are free. We also have child care for those classes. Some of the classes are anger management, health and nutrition, budgeting here, and we also have victim impact. One of the things we like to say, we are registered with 211. Those, we do get referrals from them, as well as for the courts, police, hospitals, walk-ins, you name it. We get a lot of people referring people to our agency. We do not wish to expand our services. We only hope to maintain our services. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mitch Nicosia?
Good evening, Council, Mayor. Thank you for having us.
My name is Mitch Nicosia, and I'm here to introduce or reintroduce you to the Victor Valley Community Services Council. The council is the oldest nonprofit in the High Desert, established in the mid-1950s. The council was instrumental in establishing many of the service agencies that are present today, including Better Way Domestic Violence, as well as the presence of the United Way in the High Desert. At this time, we are sponsoring an organization and a program called Same Team Kids, and so I'm here representing that program, here to introduce Bobby Tittle, who is the manager of that program. And so Bobby would explain the program, and that is what we are asking for funds for today.
Mayor Cabriales, council members, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity of speaking with you this evening. I wanted to discuss Same Team Kids a little bit more elaborately so you would understand what our program provides. Our program has been serving San Bernardino County since January of 2005. That is where we began. We moved back up here in order to provide the city of Victorville and its surrounding areas with the programs that we do. We created this organization to unify youth and positivity, to be a resource to youth in the community, and to help improve the quality of life for underserved youth throughout the San Bernardino County by providing comprehensive enrichment programs with life-building activities and instruction in the areas of education, mentoring, arts, and sports, by all of which are free to youth 5 to 17. Programs that we do provide to youth, just for example, would be our magazine program. It's for the youth, by the youth, about the youth. And in this program, they are able to learn skills such as Photoshop, InDesign. They will be learning journalism. They will be learning editing. These, we hope, are aspects in their life that they can carry on into further educational aspects. In addition to that, we provide free sporting activities, 5 to 17, events, as well as, I want to say, events as well as programs where they can come out and they can participate in flag football. They are not charged, nor are their families charged. We believe this is a program that is needed in this high desert only because there is not a program such as ours out here. We come in contact with upwards of 400 children per year, and that's just in our events. We have not yet instituted our programs due to the lack of funding. We are hoping that the CDBG will help us in this aspect so we can expand our program and provide these programs to them free of charge. In addition to that, we are registered with 211 through Victor Valley Community Services, which is our sponsoring organization. We hope to use these funds to help pay our facilitators in our program as well as run our program. There's many aspects to the things that we provide to them, so it is a very costly venture for us, but one that we hope to meet head on. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions? Doreen Hardy.
Good evening, Mayor Cabriales, council members. Thank you for this opportunity. I'm from Victor Valley Community Hospital, Chief Development Officer, and we're here on the CDBG grants also. Our main goal and purpose here tonight is to improve our level of technology at the hospital and therefore improving the quality of care for the patients that we serve. We also want to make services more convenient by relocating certain pieces of technology like our CT scanner inside the hospital. It's now located outside the hospital in a mobile unit. And replacing outdated equipment that is so outdated that parts are no longer available for that. We have about $5 million in equipment needs over the next couple of years. What I do want to point out is our patient base, 40% of our patient base is from Victorville. And we serve about 51,000 patients a year. So that's about 20,000 patients from Victorville alone. 80% of those patients will fall in the category of underinsured, meaning they receive either Medi-Cal or they are completely uninsured, or they are self-pay. 80% of those 20,000 are underinsured. We also receive 24.5 cents on the dollar in reimbursement on all of those costs. So 75.5 cents per dollar is not reimbursed at all. So I just ask you to consider that. 1/3 of the people we serve from Victorville are children. And our request will contribute to a healthier community in an area with burgeoning population growth. We're already underbedded. There should be, as statistics show through Navigant, 1 bed per 1,000 residents, and we're at about 1 bed per 1,200 residents. So we'd like you to I'd like to ask you to help us to continue to be a cornerstone of the community as we have been for the past 43 years by providing some support. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Questions?
I didn't hear, are you, the list will go to our subcommittee, but are you asking for this out of the capital improvement program or the programs program?
This is through the Community Care Improvement Project was one of the submissions, and the other was the Community Care Program. We had two submissions.
All right.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Trustee Hollenbeck?
Honorable Mayor and Councilman, I just want to thank you guys. You know, you hear a lot of complaints. You have hard choices to make all the time, and I just want you to know how much we at the homeless shelter appreciate you guys and your involvement and your help of the homeless people of this community. And because of your involvement, we have a place for them to go when they become homeless. And there's a lot of people that are falling on hard times nowadays. And but we're grateful. I just wanted to say thank you for your continued support. Your support in the bathrooms that we have now are just absolutely wonderful. As Councilman Caldwell was able to come and see, he came and visited our shelter and toured it. I wish the rest of you would come and see us too, to see where your support is going and what a wonderful shelter that we have. But I just want to thank you for your continued support and ask that you continue to support us because we really need it. I wanted to thank you also for the wonderful video you guys put together, your staff put together that was at the chamber meeting. That was absolutely wonderful. And I want to thank Terry for coming over to our shelter and touring us. It shows that you guys are community-minded and really want to see what's going on, and I just want to thank you for that. Okay, even though you've helped us with the major repairs, we need to have more help. We have a lot of things that need to be done to bring this shelter up to snuff. It's kind of been falling apart for years, and so we do need to help with that, help people to become self-sufficient, and we provide them with the things that they need to get on their feet and become self-sufficient again. A lot of the shelters around, homeless shelters, are just basically crash pads, a place that they can go and sleep and have something to eat. But as Greg Thomas, one of the radio personalities, said, we're a launch pad. We actually help people get on their feet, and we have a very high success rate at that, even better than the local EDD at helping them find work. So I just want to say thank you and ask that you continue to support us. Is there any questions?
Questions? Thank you. Bruce Young?
Good evening, Mayor and council members. I'm Bruce Young from the High Desert Communities Food Bank, and many people don't know what a food bank is, but it's a distribution system that typically gets food from the supermarkets, from the warehouses, growers, farmers, other food banks, brings them to the high desert to help the pantries, the shelters, and the soup kitchens to get their food. And we're a 501c3 nonprofit. The food bank provides food to the pantries, shelters, and soup kitchens who have become members of the food bank and are members of the board of directors. In essence, we're a co-op. We have a warehouse rented to us at the rate of $1 a month. Our warehouse is the original garage for high-grade concrete located on Bear Valley Road in Hesperia. Our first district supervisor introduced us to the Community Action Partnership in San Bernardino. If we are funded to become a branch of the San Bernardino County Food Bank system, they're also a 501c3. We'd be taking over some of the duties of this San Bernardino County food bank system that they have here in the high desert. To fund the food bank, we've asked for $60,000 from 6 different jurisdictions. The request for your city is $18,657. The number relates to the percentage of the number of meals that our 30-plus members have provided in the high desert. It's the percentage of food, and you'll find it and break down in the request for application. The money is to help us purchase a used reefer truck, a used walk-in freezer, and a used walk-in refrigerator, so that we can comply with all the different food regulations of keeping the food itself safe. We also request for a computer and software, because typically we have to be able to, if there's a food recall, we have to know what family has received the food so we can notify them. It's the agencies, ministries typically receive food or money from their congregations. Some buy retail. Many will drive to the food bank located in one of the 3 areas here in the high desert, where they can purchase food from around $18 for 100 pounds of food. A typical pantry here gives a family of 4 3 days of food or 12 meals. Many of the high desert pantries, shelters, soup kitchens, as Sam was leaving the high desert, it costs about $1,000 a year for each one of those organizations just to get the food up here. The food bank would do that for them. It computes that if you take a semi down the hill and come it back up, the increase in the cost of food is approximately 2 meals. Your food bank is trying to be a Feeding America food bank. Feeding America, the nation's food bank, has encouraged our Congress to make the Good Samaritan rules become law. This law protects the givers from harm when they give their surplus food to those in need. In addition, Feeding America and the National Food Bank has gotten into the federal law to offer tax deductions to encourage the supermarkets and other food providers who have surplus food to give their food donations to the food bank. The tax deduction law becomes very profitable to the supermarket. As an example, a product costs $1 wholesale. The donor obtains the opportunity to recapture the dollar plus somewhere between $1.50 to $2 for the donated item. It's 50% of the retail.
You've gone over 3 minutes, sir, so can you summarize, please?
Thank you, sir.
Summarize.
Pardon?
Summarize.
That's it. That was it, sir.
Okay. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mary Louise Fittler.
Hello, my name is Mary Louise Fiddler. I'm from the House of Hope, House of Faith, Residential Drug and Alcohol Treatment and Sober Living. We specialize in working with men and women who have a drug and alcohol addiction problem. Our residential facility, we focus on, well, let me tell you first, they come into the facility, we do an assessment, we evaluate things that are going on, and then we develop a treatment plan within 72 hours, so we hit the ground running, ready to work on core issues. With our sober living, we focus on taking care of learning responsibility. They develop, they've gone from residential into sober living. They've learned more skills. They're working more on conflict resolution and problem solving. Really the great thing about our treatment facility is it's small. It's a 6-bed facility. When you come in, it's almost impossible to go through the program without having your core issues looked at. If you're having a bad day and you're sitting in group and you're being quiet, you're angry, there's tension between you and another participant, we're going to know about it. If you have a success and you're doing well and you reach a treatment goal, we're going to celebrate that. Sometimes our participants aren't always happy when we're that focused on them, but in the long run, when they've graduated and they're doing well, they're grateful and thankful for that. let's see. My husband and I started our business in 1998, and we started off with sober living, and over these past 2 years, we ventured into residential treatment. Our focus right now currently is with SASCA, and those are parole, individuals who are on parole. We're looking also with DBH with our sober living. We just got a contract with them, and that's dual diagnosis. Those are individuals who have a mental health problem and a drug and alcohol addiction. In terms of the homeless, a lot of times their issues and their loss of job, loss of their homes, loss of family, there's an undercurrent of the addiction, drug and alcohol addiction, that causes these losses. Same thing with the parolees. Their core issues are basically core issues, and their addiction is the cause of many times their crimes, basically. So what we try to do is look at the core issues, delve into those, help them look at those issues so that they don't recommit crimes, that the people with dual diagnosis, so that they don't use other drugs in addition to their mental health drugs, and that people, when the homeless, that they're not losing their homes because of their core issues. They're looking at the causes of their addiction. So anyway, it's a good program. The people who go through it ultimately are, many of them, very successful. This is our first time we've applied for this grant, so we hope you take the time to consider our proposal. That's it. Any questions for us, for me?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
That's all we have, all the cards we have. This is for the HCD grants.
Item number 5, we're still on number 5.
We're number 5.
Good evening. My name is Vic
Please?
Strepech.
Yeah. And your name?
My name is Vic Strepech, representative and volunteer mentor for One-to-One Mentors. One-to-One Mentors is a 211 registered nonprofit organization. We specialize in providing guidance, encouragement, moral and emotional support for our community's youth through mentoring services. At One-to-One Mentors, we have one primary goal: to educate and empower our community's youth through one-of-a-kind mentoring services. Let me say that again. At One-to-One Mentors, we have one primary goal. Number 1, to educate our youth. Number 2, to empower them, give them the skills that they need through one-of-a-kind mentoring services. Because we believe that our children, your children, are the hope of tomorrow's future. And when our children are given the right tools, they can be a positive influence on the world and have a tremendous impact on our community. The strength of One-to-One Mentors ultimately lies in the relationships we formed with our community. If you look around, call around, you will discover that One-to-One Mentors has a footprint in nearly every middle school and high school in Victorville. Our students are referred to us through school officials, probation departments, hundreds of parents, youth services. They enroll their kids into our programs because of the success rate that is associated with it. Unfortunately for us, the growth of our programs is exceeding what we can actually accommodate for our students. And that is the purpose for me being here. The purpose for this grant is so that we can acquire a larger facility, much larger than what we currently have, so that our organizational structure can keep up with our student programs, the growth of our student programs. The more children we get, the more facilitators we need, the more mentors we need to recruit. Because if we don't get these mentors, then children don't get the proper attention that they deserve when they come into our programs, right? Unfortunately, we can't grow faster than what we can afford because we're bound by the size of our facility. And what we don't want to do at one-to-one mentors is start telling kids that we can't help them or that we don't have room for them. We just don't want to do that. So please consider it. Help us help our children. Help your children be that positive influence on the world. And so that they can continually have this tremendous impact on us and our community. On behalf of One-to-One Mentors, I want to thank you for giving us this opportunity, and thank you.
Any questions? Thank you. I will now close the public hearing on item number 5. Is there any, we don't take action.
We don't take, but you might want to explain that there will be a review process.
There'll be a subcommittee from the council that'll be appointed, and it's on one of the items later on. That subcommittee will look at all the applications, and then when we select the ones that, along with staff to assist us, we'll select the recipients of the grants for this year, and then those will be announced, and you'll be notified. So, once again, thank you. Number 6 is that was the revision that we had, and it's the public hearing. And can we have that wording again for the ordinance?
Yes, Mayor Cabrales. This would be a public hearing to consider ordinance number 2257, which would amend section 17.64.060 of the Victorville Municipal Code to allow for liens to substitute as security for tract improvements and establish a set lien agreement fee.
Okay, the public hearing is open on item number 6. Anyone wishing to speak for or against item number 6? Hearing none, this item will be continued until
March 2nd.
March 2nd. Thank you. Item number 7 is the consent calendar.
Approval?
Second.
Item number 8, and we did receive additional materials. This is a discussion and possible action regarding the California Desert Protection Act of 2010. And do we have a spokesperson for item number 8? Spokespersons.
Yes, spokespeople. Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Marissa Calderon. I'm with the California Wilderness Coalition. I'm a member, resident of Victorville. I live and work here as well. And our organization is a nonpartisan nonprofit. We're state-based, and we work throughout California on ensuring access to wild public lands.
Good evening, council members. My name is April Saul. I'm a land manager for the Wildlands Conservancy, a nonprofit in California that conserves large land acreage areas and opens them up to the public for various recreation and provides free outdoor education for kids.
Thank you for allowing us to come and speak about this very important legislation. To give a little bit of background, the California Desert Protection Act has been just over 3 years in the making. It was introduced by Senator Feinstein on December 21st of last year, and that was after a lot of groundwork that was done with various stakeholders, including the off-road business associations and many members of the off-road community, environmental groups, the renewable energy development groups, as well as mining concerns, and a lot of cities, elected officials, and various other stakeholders that are really throughout all of the California desert.
And the legislation also addresses the Catellis land purchase, which the Wildlands Conservancy and Senator Feinstein worked on beginning in 1999. Brief background is the Catellis lands. Catellis is the real estate arm of Santa Fe Railroad. And to encourage westward expansion, Congress gave the railroads every other section of land in western states. Beginning in 1999, in the late 90s, these lands were presented for disposal, and the Wildlands Conservancy got together with desert enthusiasts and stakeholders to raise $45 million in private funds and purchase these lands. And about 630,000 acres in the California desert was purchased and gifted to the American Public Land System. All lands were given to Department of Interior, BLM, and National Park Service for management, and it was the largest land acquisition to the American people in U.S. history. The federal governmental officials, including President Bill Clinton and Vice President Al Gore and Secretary of Interior Bruce Babbitt, made press statements and letters that these lands were protected for their conservation, recreation, and cultural values. And fast forwarding to 2005, Energy Policy Act opened up public lands for renewable energy exploration, and 1.2 million acres of the California desert went under application for development, and nearly 300,000 acres of Catellis lands that were, again, purchased with private dollars for protection were also included in those development proposals. So we again went to the senator with some proposals for how to protect these investments.
Just lastly, in terms of background, this legislation is critical because it will help to create an approach to managing the various federal lands that exist within the desert and all of those various competing uses. As April mentioned, renewable energy is certainly one, recreation and the economic tourism that really helps to sustain a lot of our desert communities is another. So those are very important components of this legislation. The map that you see up here was created by the Bureau of Land Management and highlights many of the areas that will receive designation or protection under the California Desert Protection Act. The first of which is the Mojave Trails National Monument that would be created. And if you look just up to the right there, highlighted and really it's outlined in red, kind of just south of the Mojave National Preserve. That's the location of the Mojave Trails National Monument. And an important thing to underscore is that the purpose of the monument is really to protect status quo and that it protects all current uses. So every single one of the current uses that occur there today, and that includes OHV use. It includes street legal and green sticker use on on the trail systems that exist there, which we know is important to many enthusiasts and visitors who come to our desert. It includes other uses like hiking and rock hounding, camping, really all of the uses that exist today, and it is BLM managed land and will continue to remain BLM managed land under this monument.
Yeah, a couple more things about the monument. It does not affect any private property or private inholdings. And as Marissa stated, the monument proposal is to protect the status quo of the uses in those lands under BLM management. So existing recreation, existing mining interests, et cetera, are preserved and essentially grandfathered into the management plan for that area. So the only thing precluded would be utility scale renewable energy development on public federal lands. It does not affect the opportunity for those projects to move forward on private lands, such as inholdings from Cadiz Land Company, et cetera. And for the Catellis purchase, the Wildlands Conservancy collaborated with groups such as Cal 4-Wheel Drive and hunting enthusiasts for the protection of those lands, and that again is part of the proposal for the monument. It was originally called the Mother Road National Monument to honor Route 66 that bisects the monument. It is the longest undeveloped stretch, Route 66, that remains in the U.S. And we've been trying to work with many stakeholders, including county supervisors, and currently Supervisor Mitzefeld and Neil Derry have expressed a lot of support.
The other smaller monument is the Sand to Snow National Monument. It really provides a kind of an economic draw for many areas that are about 90% already conserved, either because they're existing wilderness or they're a preserve of some sort. So it really is a different purpose for that smaller monument just to the kind of southwest of there. The other third important area to highlight are the OHV recreational areas. This really is precedent setting. Congress would designate 5 of the largest OHV areas as open OHV areas, so they would receive that protection really in perpetuity and remain as open areas for recreation, helping to secure some of that $230 million that comes into our desert communities from recreation in this form annually. And then the last area that we've included there are wilderness and park additions. Something that's different about this bill than may be in other wilderness bills in the past is that we've worked very hard with off-road groups and with the Off-Road Business Association, with AMA's District 37, both of whom are very supportive, to ensure that that there are cherry stems or roads cut out for existing routes to ensure that access remains and continues for these areas. So we've listed out a few of the economic drivers that we feel like are important for our high desert communities and for many of the other communities that are benefited by this legislation. One of those, and there at the top, is the renewable energy lease income. That today, projects that occur on federal land, all of the lease income associated with those 30-year leases goes directly back to the Department of the Interior, to the federal government, and the counties and the states don't see any of that income. This legislation would change that. It would return 25% of the lease income from, once again, those 30-year leases back to the state, and another 25% to the counties, which we know that San Bernardino County has a significant amount of federal land that is being sought after for renewable energy, and that would certainly present an economic benefit back to the county, and there would not be an effect on PILT payments. There are some kind of minor adjustments that are being made in language to ensure that that is certainly the case. That's not the intention with the legislation, but that it would return money back in addition to PILT payments. And then it also allows for state lands transfers and exchanges at the request of the state, so that there can be income generated into CalSTRS from existing state lands that today do not generate income because they're dispersed throughout the state. This would allow for, as I mentioned, state land transfers, so that could be an economic engine for the state, as opposed to kind of something that doesn't generate any income today. The other thing it does is it allows for overflight over existing wilderness and park areas, so that the military can do low-level training missions, which we feel like is important, especially for our desert areas. We talked about the OHV recreation areas. And
a few things about renewable energy in this bill is that the legislation creates a process for eliminating the backlog of renewable energy proposals. It sets deadlines both for project proponents as well as for the BLM in responding to various benchmarks along the permitting process. So if an application is not complete, or if there's not a plan of development that has been submitted for a particular project after a particular deadline, that land will then open up to another project proponent for a project proposal. Also, for projects that have completed biological and cultural surveys, as well as submitted plans of development and secured their water rights or water plans for the project and have an interconnection plan to the power grid, those projects will be fast-tracked by the permitting agencies. There is also permits for construction of transmission line and transmission line language in both of the monuments that allows for existing rights-of-way and for new rights-of-way within the monument, energy corridors for both Santa Snow and for Mojave Trails National Monument, as well as realignments of those corridors if the Secretary of Interior feels that is so needed. There is also incentives created for renewable energy projects by creating a mitigation bank that will essentially create a mitigation fund of for up to 200,000 acres of federal land to be used for mitigation for projects on private land. So this will allow projects on private land to have a federal nexus that will allow them to use a Section 7 Endangered Species Act permit, which has been perceived as faster than a Section 10 permit that is traditionally used on private land. So this will create that nexus for endangered species permits to be secured faster and for projects to move forward and get online and hopefully get stimulus money for the 2010 deadline. It also establishes a study deadline for other land managing agencies, including the U.S. Forest Service and Department of Defense, to analyze their lands for potential renewable energy development. And it creates loan guarantees for advanced technology for transmission lines, such as undergrounding or superconductor high transmission proposals. These technologies are currently very expensive, and they have had limited success in expanding to the West Coast because of their financial implications.
One thing we'd like to highlight, we've provided a list of organizations, community leaders, cities, chambers, elected officials, all of whom are publicly endorsing the California Desert Protection Act of 2010. And we feel like some important points to underscore that are things that you may have heard that are erroneous about the legislation is that this is indeed not a federal land grab. All of this land actually belongs today to the federal government. So we, the people, own this land, and it's existing federal land. And that another thing that you may have heard is that that there may be restricted access into the specifically the Mojave Trails National Monument, and that's not at all the case. Certainly this is, because of the language in the bill, this is one of the most open access monuments that you'll find in legislation, once again ensuring access to the OHV community on trail systems with green sticker vehicles as well as street legal vehicles. And this legislation actually does not affect any potential for military expansion. Our organizations, as well as the Senator's office, has worked extensively with all branches of the military to ensure that their concerns are addressed. And in fact, the military sees wilderness specifically as a buffer to ensure the privacy of their training activities on their bases.
Just a final comment regarding renewable energy. You're all familiar with the state's goal to reach our 2020 33% renewable goal, and this legislation will help us to move forward with that goal. The California Energy Commission has estimated that between 60 and 125,000 acres of land is what's needed if we relied only on utility-scale solar to meet that goal. Of course, with wind, geothermal, biomass, and other projects, we'll need much less land from utility-scale solar. So there are many opportunities in the solar study areas. The Department of Interior came out with a map and is going through a PEIS process currently. That began in June of 2009, and there are 351,000 acres in Southern California designated to be a study area for renewable energy utility-scale solar.
Be happy to answer any questions if you have questions at this time as well.
Well, I have a couple of questions and a couple of comments. When I spoke with you last week, I indicated my desire to do some due diligence.
Mm-hmm.
I'm specifically concerned about the potential impact on the mining industry in the desert and the Fort Irwin and China Lake and 29 Palms facilities. I do not see any endorsements or support from the military or the mining industry, and that is of concern to me. Secondly, I don't hear anything in your presentation that indicates whether or not use of the desert for filming is going to be impacted through this legislation. I am concerned about the availability of federal lands for energy projects. I mean, this nation, I think, is crying out for energy independence. And if we don't have federal lands available to address solar, I think that we are potentially shortchanging ourselves. Now, I'm not saying that the proposed legislation doesn't address that properly, but I have not satisfied myself. And as I told you when we met, I need to become comfortable that the folks we asked to defend this nation are okay with this, because I've lived in this desert my entire life. Grew up in Barstow. I know the importance of the Desert Warfare Training Facility. I have got to become comfortable not just with the status quo. In fact, I will tell you, your phrase tonight multiple times about status quo causes me some concern. I may become convinced the status quo is okay, but I don't know that at this point. So I, for one, am not prepared to take a position for or against this legislation tonight, because I have not had a chance to complete the due diligence that I told you I was going to go through. But I will say that if I can become convinced that our military preparedness and our very vital mining interests are adequately protected, and that there are adequate opportunities and provisions for the development of alternative energy, specifically solar, then I may well move to the position that Senator Feinstein wants this legislation to go. But that's where I'm at, and that's my comments on this subject.
Well, I also met, I had maybe 2 meetings tonight. I didn't see that problem, because I was assured, and maybe I should look into that the military, 29 Palms and the other bases didn't have a problem. Mm-hmm. And maybe that's what Mr. Caldwell needs to be assured of, that one item, and then, of course, the mining industry. So if we took a vote today, it wouldn't pass. So I would suggest we get some more information to both Councilman Terry Caldwell and Mike Rothschild in regards to their concerns. I'm prepared. You know, I looked at the information. I think it's a good plan. But if I call for a vote right now, I don't think I'm going to get the vote, because they don't have all the information they need.
Yeah, and we understand, and we certainly appreciate your comments, and we can certainly follow up with you with more specific information that addresses those particular 3 points with respect to mining, the military support, and kind of federal land availability for renewable energy. For your edification at this point, we have actually worked with many concerns within the mining industry, and there were boundary adjustments to the monument specifically, as well as areas of wilderness that were completely left out of the bill to address mining concerns. And we'd be happy to provide you with some of that specific detail. And then with respect to the military, they, as you probably know, can't go on record specifically in favor of, but we have worked with high-level generals at all of the bases, and we'd be happy to cover that information with you specifically, as well as some of the specific acreage within the solar study zones that does allow for sufficient federal land space for renewable energy. So we thank you for your time.
One other comment. It's my understanding that the Desert Mountain Division of the League will be addressing this subject within the next week or 2, and I perhaps some of the concerns I've raised will be raised by others, and that may be the next forum where some of these things can be addressed. I am aware that from time to time the military finds ways to express its support or its concern without the commanding general taking an official public position. So there are ways, I think, that those issues can be addressed.
Okay. Well, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you. I do have 14 cards on item 8.
Mayor, if we've got 14 cards on item 8 and we've got 19 more items to go, I have to ask for a recess.
I agree. But when we get back, we'll address these 14 cards that want to speak on item 8. But it appears that some may be saying the same thing, if it's support or opposition. So I would ask that when we come back and those that wish to still speak, that have cards with us, that we not become redundant in the information that's passed on to the city council. We'll take a 5-minute recess. Thank you. What I would like to suggest to the council is that we table this item for 2 weeks. That'll give everybody a chance to get the information to Councilman Caldwell and Councilman Rothschild, and whatever documentation you might have for them that you can get to them. And then we'll also have a full council in 2 weeks, and that'll give us an opportunity for everybody to get involved. And so I still have these cards. We can wait until we meet in 2 weeks, or do you want to speak for the record? Okay. Now, as I mentioned before, you have 3 minutes. I would like to, because there's 14 of them, and we'll be here for another 45 minutes just dealing with this, and we have a full agenda to deal with. So I would ask that we not repeat ourselves, that whatever the person, the one person that gets up and whatever they say, that it's not just a repetition of all 14. So we'll start with Monica Argandoña.
Argandoña. Hi, I'm from the California Wilderness Coalition, and I wanted to speak specifically to Councilmember Caldwell's concerns about the military. When we started working on this bill 3 years ago with Senator Feinstein, one of the things she told us is that the military better be happy. So we started 3 years ago working with Fort Irwin, China Lake, 29 Palms, even the Navy SEALs down in Imperial County. So we have a few areas down in Imperial County, and it turns out that the Navy SEALs have been using it to practice now for about 6 years. Without a permit, BLM didn't know. Nobody knew they were down there. The Border Patrol didn't know. Locals didn't know. And as the Navy SEAL said to me, we drop about 50 dudes and a couple of Humvees, and we have 3 or 4 days to find our way out without leaving a trace. And I said, well, you do a damn good job because nobody saw you. Nobody knew you were down there. So they didn't want to see development down there. They didn't want to see anything happen to the area. So they liked the idea of wilderness, but of course wilderness would prohibit some of their training. So we came to an agreement with them that those areas would be potential wilderness areas until the Navy SEALs are done training. And there's no time limit on the Navy SEALs. They can have 50 years, 100 years, however long they want. So they really see that as a win-win situation. Congressman McKeon's office also had concerns about the military and wanted to make sure that we addressed any issues. They didn't take our word for it. They wanted to do their due diligence. We actually had a meeting late in November at Fort Irwin. Fort Irwin, the Navy was there, the Marines were there, the Air Force was there, and the Army was there. We conferenced people in from the Pentagon, and we had a meeting to discuss each one of the areas, make sure that the boundaries that we had set on the maps were okay with all of the bases. For a lot of the areas, they saw the wilderness as buffers to their base, adding extra protection, or extra layer of protection. Any routes that they needed open to access the base, remained open. In some areas, they wanted an additional setback because the routes weren't very clear and sometimes they get lost. So if they wanted a 500-foot setback, we gave them that. If it was 1,000-foot, we gave them that. We addressed every single one of their concerns to the satisfaction of Congressman McKeon's staff. We are working on a letter. The military can't just write letters. It has to go all the way up into D.C. and get approval. So we are expecting that letter soon. And as soon as I have it, I will forward all of you a copy. But I did want to let you know that we feel that we have the military support, and we have addressed all their concerns.
Thank you. Bert Grace.
My name is Bert Bays. I'm a property owner and a business owner, and I have been living up here for 22 years. What I just wanted to say is that I approve the California Desert Protection Act. One of the main reasons is it would allow us to do things in an orderly way, rather than just having power plants popping up everywhere without the consent of the public. We need these places for your kids, for their grandkids, and we have to preserve them. Thank you.
Thank you. Jill Bays?
Thank you. I'm also, I moved up to Victorville with my family in 1974. I've been here a very long time. I've been a business owner and a property owner for 22 years. My grandkids play in this desert in all forms of play, and I applaud the organized stakeholder process that the groups have gone through to come up with this plan. And I think without a really good plan, I worry that I think it's 244 applications for renewable energy with the Energy Commission now that are driven very heavily by stimulus money would be taking over our desert completely if we don't have a plan for other recreational uses in our desert, and I think we need that. And I also worry about our Air Force ability to do flyovers and with supersonic flights over 1 million acres of mirrors that are high precision focus mirrors and the impacts that that's going to have. So I think this coordinated effort where there will be renewable energy plants and then there will be other areas for other things to happen is very important. Thank you.
Thank you. Nathan Crum?
Mayor and council members, my wife Catherine Allen and I would like to combine our comments in the interest of time, if we can, for the record, be put down as two people in favor of supporting this resolution. We come from Pear Blossom, a community about an hour to the west of you, so we are not Victorville residents, but we are your neighbors. And the issues that this bill addresses affect all of us in the high desert, and that's why we've come here to speak to you tonight. This bill comes barely in time to preserve some of the beautiful areas of Southern California, especially the Southern California desert, which are the primary reason that we moved here in the first place, and I believe that would also apply to many of your Victorville residents as well. There's currently, as you've heard, tremendous pressure for unsustainable kinds of development in our desert, and on our federal lands particularly, and we do not trust that the U.S. Forest Service and the BLM and our other federal land managers will be able to resist those pressures without the protection of lands that wilderness designation provides. At the same time, I think you've heard that this is a very balanced bill. It's not just for greenies like ourselves who like to recreate in the desert. There's also provisions in there for OHV enthusiasts. There's provisions for streamlining the permitting process for sustainable kinds of development. There's really something for everyone there. The bill has been carefully crafted. Best of all, I think this is something that you can do for your community and your neighbors that doesn't cost anything. So we would conclude by asking you to seriously consider passing a resolution in support of the 2010 Desert Protection Act. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Laverne Booth?
My name is Laverne Booth. I live in Hesperia, and I'm retired. In order to maintain my physical and emotional health, I find I really need to get out often to hike in the great outdoors. Preserving wild places like Deep Creek Canyon is important to me because from my home, it's only a 20-minute drive to the lower end of Deep Creek Canyon. From there, I can hike up the canyon on the Pacific Crest Trail, sometimes a short hike along the stream, other times longer hikes up into the San Bernardino Mountains. On one hot summer day, while hiking in the lower canyon under the shade of big cottonwood trees where the creek is shallow and calm, I passed a young mother with her 2 little girls playing in the cool, clear water. It's not often that you find a scene like that in this desert area. One brisk autumn morning at a local cafe, I joined several of my hiking friends, some of them local, some from out of town. After coffee and sweet treats, we drove to the Deep Creek trailhead, then hiked several miles into the mountains. Looking down from the trail on the side of the canyon, we were amazed to see whitewater rapids rushing over gigantic boulders. Then in some places the water smoothed out into very large deep pools. Big native sycamore trees lined the creek bed, and further up the canyon sides were huge oak trees and pines. I was delighted to find some of my favorite trees, the stately big cone Douglas fir, an ancient species of tree that now grows only in a few remote places in Southern California. Later, we returned to our cars, tired and hungry, and drove over to another local cafe to pig out. One lovely spring day, my focus, pardon the pun, was on photography. After a short time in Deep Creek Canyon, the card on my digital camera was filled with images of golden California poppies, blue lupins, yellow Fremontia blossoms, brilliant green leaves of the holly leaf cherry, and so much more. Please support the California Desert Protection Act. It will protect our unique and pristine Deep Creek as a wild and scenic river. Also, it will protect many other things that are near and dear to my heart and the hearts of many of my friends: the bighorn sheep, the desert tortoise, and the dark star-filled night sky,
left, ma'am.
and the open natural vistas. Thank you.
Thank you. Fraser Haney.
My name is Fraser Haney. Thanks very much for the opportunity to speak. I've lived in the desert since 1994. I've been a hiking guide and a climber in Joshua Tree National Park, and I wanted to mention the benefit of tourism that a federal designation could bring to an area. I've been all across the western United States and climbed and camped. I've been to Zion, Yosemite, Yellowstone, the Redwoods, the Grand Canyon, and I think the Mojave Desert is on par with those places, and that the California Desert Protection Act of 2010 would set us to be next to those great American landscapes. Also, as an ecologist, this is a big opportunity to protect one of America's last great unprotected, intact landscapes. I've owned a home in the high desert since 1994, and I have a lot of friends that are in the small communities of the high desert, and I've watched the small businesses in the high deserts live and grow from the tourism that comes into small communities from federally designated areas. I also currently live in the Coachella Valley near the Santa Rosa and San Jacinto National Monument, and since the designation of that monument, I can attest to the increased tourism in the areas down there. So I'd like to thank you for your time and encourage you to support the bill.
Thank you. Lloyd Gunn.
Good evening. My name is Lloyd Gunn. I'm a member of the Society for Conservation of Bighorn Sheep. Besides maintaining water sources in the Mojave Desert, many of our members are hunters. And reading the summary of this bill, it maintains existing recreation uses, including hunting, vehicular travel on existing open roads and trails, grazing, camping, horseback riding, and rock collecting. Victorville, to me, has always been, I've always looked on Victorville as a gateway to our public lands in San Bernardino County. People that recreate in the Mojave Desert in San Bernardino County also buy groceries at your stores. They buy gas from your gas stations. They eat at your many varied restaurants. And I hope the council will look favorably on this desert bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Jim Conkle.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council members. We've grown old together, haven't we, gentlemen? Known each other a long time. What are my qualifications for being here? Well, as you know, our California Route 66 Museum, located here in Victorville, is going to celebrate its 15th anniversary, and I will celebrate my 13th year on the board of directors this year. I'm very actively involved. Why am I involved with this project? Well, I am because Route 66 dissects the entire monument. And in fact, when we first got started, it was called the Mother Road National Monument. It has been changed. But I'm here because of tourism. Smithsonian Magazine listed Route 66 as one of the top 10 most endangered places in the world. World Monuments listed it as one of the 100th. I just came from the annual Cultural and Heritage Tourism Symposium held up in Chico. This monument is going to give us ecotourism, agritourism, cultural tourism. This is what we're looking for. And Victorville stands on the threshold of where that tourism starts when it goes east or when it comes west this way. So my feeling is that although all these great people have their own reasons for supporting this bill, and rightfully so, and I appreciate all of their friendships and input, but I'm after tourism. I'm after promoting and saving and restoring and preserving Route 66, and it goes through our community. And so I address your issues, Mr. Councilman, because you and I have known each other for many years, and I trained at that Marine base before going to Vietnam, and I know it's inadequate. They need more space. I had a uncle that served at George. I know that we need the military, and we're not anti-military, I can guarantee you that. But I think that we need to sit down and talk to you and the staff about what this does for tourism, what this does. We have a chance here to do something we've never done before, and that's make part of Route 66. It's an international icon. Let's make it our priority. And so I know all of you, and I know how much you are devoted to what you do, and it's been my honor and privilege to know you all, Jim, for 30 years, but most of you guys for at least almost 25. Mike, we've talked many times about our tours in Vietnam and what we've done. And guys, this isn't a
Jim, you have
political
30
thing.
seconds.
We've met with all of them, and we want to meet with you again. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Catherine Allen? Is Carol Wiley?
Good evening. My name is Carol Wiley. I'm a longtime resident of Victorville. I've lived here for over 40 years. I worked here for many years. I retired from Victor Valley College. During all my time here, I've learned much about the desert. I've had time to spend a lot of time there. I've learned to love it a lot and learned a lot about it. So I'm here to ask for your support for it. There are many, many unusual and special places out there. Many canyons. There's like Surprise Canyon that actually has a fern grotto. Deep Creek, which the previous lady mentioned. Beautiful, beautiful places. Rugged mountains. Afton Canyon with a wind cave. There's just treasures out there all over. So now is the time to really plan ahead, to set aside places for protection, for recreation, for wildlife habitat, for solitude, and I support the wilderness component. It's needed to protect some places, so they will be there in the future for wildlife, for people, for solitude, and I also support the Mother Road portion. Not only is it scenic, but it's historic. So now's the time to plan ahead and look at these issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Laurel Williams?
Hi, Mayor and council members. My name is Laurel Williams, and I'm the Southern California Deputy Conservation Director for the California Wilderness Coalition. You heard earlier from some of my colleagues about the long process that has gone on to craft the various proposals that are included in this bill. I just want to speak briefly about some of the numbers for tourism. So again, this would protect some of our unique landscapes that really draw folks to our region. There's about $230 million spent each year by recreationists visiting the California desert region. Those are dollars that are spent here in local communities, creating jobs and really helping the economy. There's currently about 6.7 million visitor days reported by the BLM and the National Park Service for folks visiting wilderness areas, national parks, and things like that. And there were several studies done that show that a 10% increase in the size of a wilderness area or a national monument is generally met with an 8.9% increase in visitors. So I'm obviously urging you guys to support the California Desert Protection Act of 2010 to protect these unique treasures and to protect the tourism interests and bring in money and jobs. Thanks.
Thank you. May Del Valle.
Hello, my name is Mary Della Valle. I work professionally as an environmental scientist for a variety of different agencies. I am a resident of Apple Valley, and sometimes I teach at Victor Valley Community College as an adjunct biology professor. The reason that I would like to support this particular bill is it creates a balance between the economic development that we all understand we need and enable us to maintain an ecosystem that functions the way it's supposed to. A functional ecosystem with connectivity between preserved areas that allows wildlife to move back and forth, particularly even including in response to climatic change, that allows the hydrology of the ecosystem to function properly, is also an ecosystem that will sustain business and economic development in the long run. So it looks like a well-balanced approach, and it looks like something that will actually facilitate long-term economic development. Thank you.
Thank you. Jenny? Jerry? The last name is G, and I can't make out. It's A-B-O-W. Okay. Keith, looks like Clough. Okay. That's it. I'm going to request that we table this for 2 weeks, and if you can get that information for Councilman Terry Caldwell and Mike Rothschild, that would be helpful. Item number 9, the request to appoint Mayor Pro Tem Rothschild as the delegate and Brian Schneider as the alternative representative on the Mojave Desert and Mountain Integrated Waste Management, JPA.
Also move.
Second?
Self-serving thing.
You're in a hurry.
I just want to go to those every
You
month.
want to, yeah, you're just dying to go there. Number 11, item 11, we had dealt with 10.
Number 11?
Oh, yes, because we did 10.
I would move that we allow Councilman McEachern and Councilwoman Almond to serve on that committee this year. So that's my motion.
Second.
Unanimous?
Item number 12, a request to adopt resolution number 10-010. It deals with destroying records for the city.
Approval.
Second.
Request for council to approve an additional appropriation in the amount of $9,000 to be funded through RIP grants for change order for project ES 10-016, asbestos abatement and building demolition.
Second.
Number 14, request to approve resolution number 10-013.
Second.
I say yes.
I entered that, Mayor Cabriels.
Number 15 is a request for council to review the May invoices from Millen Energy for payment. Mr. Cox?
Question. Mr. Cox, yours or your staff's review of the charges, detect any charges on there that are not associated with either the maintenance of the CEC permit or the acquisition of necessary plans for the footprint for the site, or things related to the VV2 permits, the entitlements? Well, as I guess the only member on the council who's been involved in all of this, I will say that Latham and Watkins a lot of work for the city with regard to the air portion, the entitlements, a lot of work on the cure issue. There was, I think, tacit direction from the city to do whatever was necessary to keep the CEC permit viable. And of course, we did have environmental issues with regard to tortoise habitat. Your review of the May charges indicate that staff is either comfortable with or cannot take a position on, if I understand the number, at 70,000 change, as opposed to the bill of 74,000 and change. My numbers and understanding is correct. I would be prepared to move payment of the staff number, which is 70,000, something perhaps you or Doug could recite it for the record so that it's
clear. I have a question. The bills were after the April deadline, or that was given to all anyone that had contracts, where we cancel all contracts. They were instructed that in order to receive payment for any work, had to been approved by the city manager. But the direction was to come back to you for. We have a statement, I guess, that Councilwoman Joanne Allman want to read into the record.
I am unable to attend tonight's City Council meeting, but am requesting that the following statement be read into the record as it relates to Agenda Item Number 15 concerning invoices submitted for payment by Inland Energy. I object to the payment of the invoices submitted by Inland Energy that are on tonight's City Council agenda, nor do I believe that they should be paid from the SCLAA Bond Fund account. I would request that all services being provided by Inland Energy be terminated immediately and that there be no further involvement in city projects by Inland Energy.
The $70,000, that is what you have looked at, and you're comfortable with that? That's your motion?
My motion.
There's a second?
Second.
I would just like to request that get direction that was given prior at April, when the April decision was to cancel contracts, is that any work has to be approved by the city manager. I think that's what we need to do in order to avoid back and forth. And with that motion, I will also request that that be done, so we don't have this discrepancy for going back and forth on the bill.
So I don't have a problem with that, but I mean, if there is concern and heartburn, then I think that the council certainly can direct that Mr. Robinson, go forward basis from tonight, be the only one that's involved in the project. And we have had at our requests from the committee, certainly, ongoing tasks that we've asked Inland to perform, input that we've asked them for, critiques, information, directives. I will say again that I think that we as a city need to use the services of people who are experts in the field. If we're not going to do that, then it's going to have to be totally staff-driven. And while I think that that is a burden that is unfair to put on Mr. Robinson's shoulders, I mean, if that is what the majority of the council feels is appropriate, then I think the council needs to take that action. I, for one, as a member of the committee for as long as that committee has existed, was under the impression from direction that I thought the council gave was that, yes, all of these outside contracts were going to be terminated and renegotiated, but that the city was going to move forward with Inland as our consultant and as our expert on things related to VV2. Now, I participated in meetings last week that directly involved Inland's participation at the request of the city. And I mean, I will take responsibility for sitting in on a meeting that they provided substantial input to that resulted in things that we've talked about just recently with regard to the energy. So I think there needs to be clarity. If that is going to be the position of the council, that there be no involvement, then I think we have to say so. And I think, you know, at some point we have some very, very competent professionals that we rely on. Ask them to shepherd and maintain and preserve our CEC permit, and at the same time explore ways to go forward with alternate or modifications of our energy footprint, and just do it. I mean, I don't want to speak badly of the staff, but we do not have an energy consultant on the payroll. I think to burden Doug and our senior staff with trying to sort some of these things out on their own and then bring it back to us as neophytes is, in my opinion, fraught with problems. But, you know,
And I understand that, and we, you know, the direction was for the work to be by the city manager, whatever work there was. We have another committee now, and I think we understand that Doug is the lead person for that. I guess what I'm saying is that there needs to be someone that says, yeah, you can do this much work. Otherwise, if it's just open-ended, then how do we control the expenses? That's my concern.
Well, I don't know how clear it was
Yeah.
for the work that was done in May. I mean, as I understand the staff write-up, this was services that were performed 9 months ago. As a member of the committee, I know that a lot of time and energy went into these things at the committee's request. Sometimes, I think, at staff request. But
And that's fine, but somebody is requesting that, you know, and it's going through some procedure rather than just open-ended. So that was my concern. Item 16 is the request to approve a $100,000 additional appropriation funded by storm drain utility.
move approval.
Item 17, request to adopt resolution number 10-015.
The well-thought-out resolution asking all the cities to support to repeal AB 32, the global warming or carbon emissions, if you will, and ask the governor to suspend it and while they're in the process of repealing it. There was no dissenting votes on the board. There was 3 abstentions, one of which was Barbara Reardon, who sits on the state board, so she declined to vote on the local board. And hopefully the council will give their resolution of support. Next month, we'll pass a resolution from the board and then submit it along with all the cities that have come on board with this resolution.
Is there a motion to approve?
Yes, I'd move that we approve this resolution.
Second?
Second.
Item 18 is the request to execute the memorandum of understanding between the City of Victorville and the Victorville Water District to meet land tenure requirements for an approved grant application through the statewide Park Development and Community Revitalization Program.
Approval.
We do have an emergency item.
Gabrielle, you have before you the staff write-up. It's in connection with Thursday, early Friday, after the post.
Approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Item 19 is presentation of report from City Council. Powell?
Well, I'd just like to report that the UCLA Bruins failed twice this basketball season to beat the Trojans, and Mr. D. Bortnowski is paying a huge penalty for failure on the basketball court.
Congratulations.
You got to admit, that's a very rare moment.
Enjoy it while I can.
Mr. Rothschild?
No.
I have none. Thank you all for attending this late meeting.